While the audience is watching the show, the real nail-biting drama is happening backstage. I'm here with Ben, a stagehand at the Metropolitan Opera House of New York City. The Metropolitan Opera House is one of the most renowned performance halls in the world. It has one of the largest and most complex stages. I mean, we're talking the stage itself is 80 feet deep. The curtain is one of the largest curtains in the world. Every operatic great has performed there. Not only that, it has a grand opera with their lavish set designs and special effects, as well as complex opera where everything from fireworks to mustaches have to move to music on cue. And it's the backstage team working behind the scenes, making it possible for up to 4 rotating operas to take place over the course of a week. Ladies and gentlemen, my guest.
Hey, sorry, I just had to jump in here really quick to say I'm so sorry about my audio. I didn't realize that the room was so echoey, and I did not know that my mic was dying. And number 2, FYI, pictures are just for entertainment. All right, back to the interview.
Could you explain for us just like what does a stagehand do?
Setting up all the scenery that the performers use. When the scene changes and act changes come, we need to shift that scenery out. Occasionally we have to go on stage in costume to move it, and then when it's all done, we take it down.
Are there different roles within being a stagehand, or is it just everybody jump in and...
Because of the size of the scenery that they use at the Met, the scope and the scale of the productions is so large that we're split into 3 groups. There are the stage carpenters, which handle the physical scenery. There are the electricians, which handle things like lighting, motion control. And then there are the prop people that handle the small handheld items that performers might use.
So is a formal college education necessary to become a stagehand?
Absolutely not. In fact, one of the best things about this job is that you can jump right into making good money without a tremendous amount of student loan debt hanging over your head. You don't need any kind of formal training to start this job. Most of the training that you need happens on the job. There are a couple of people there that have majored in theater, and we kind of like to rib them about the fact that they're doing the same thing we are, except they've got loans to pay back.
Oh, wow.
If you want to get into some other aspect of theater, like let's say being a lighting director, a technical director, an artistic director, and so on, then yes, absolutely, it might benefit you, but for this job, no.
What are the most important skills that a stagehand has to have?
I would say that there are 3 things. First is you need to have a bit of tolerance for pain and tiredness, because working 15-hour days with work that's heavy, it's inevitable that from time to time you're not going to be caught up on your sleep. You'll have little nagging injuries that you don't have time to rest. So people who are okay with being a little bit uncomfortable, that's definitely an asset to have. Also, you need to have a thick skin, because people are pretty free about letting you know if they have a problem with what you're doing. And it actually took me a couple of years to get used to the way that people talk to each other. But finally, one of the most important skills is to have a good memory, because in a house where you're continually seeing different shows every year, you're in a situation quite often where a show will come in that hasn't been in the building for 10 years, 12 years, 15 years, and those few people who can say, I haven't seen this show since 10 years ago, but I do recall this goes here, and first this has to happen, and so on, those are the people that run the place. So, summary, a bit of tolerance for discomfort, thick skin, and a good memory.
No crybabies, no snowflakes.
Right, no doubt about that.
How many stagehands does the Met have?
On a large show, we could have as many as 80 to 90 people working backstage. Smaller shows could be less, as few as 60.
Compared to other theaters, what is it like working at the Met?
The main thing that separates the Met from other theaters in the city is that it's what's known as a repertory house. And what differentiates that from Broadway, for example, is that if you're doing a show like Lion King, you're doing a run where that's the only thing on stage. So you'll come in every day, you'll reset it from the top, and you'll work it. At the Met, they have a repertory of 200 different shows that continuously cycle through the house. And in a given year, they'll pick between 24 and 30 of them for production. So every day we're doing a different show with full scenery, but also every day we'll be doing a full rehearsal with scenery. So the volume of work is tremendously higher in the Met than it would be in other theaters.
Definitely. So what's an average day like?
So a typical day will start at 8 in the morning, and because of the size and the scope of the scenery, we take over from a crew that actually works overnight to take down what we had left and to set us up for the morning. So the first thing that we need to do is to set up a rehearsal, which begins at 11. We'll treat it to the best of our ability like an actual performance. The rehearsal will typically end around 2 or 2:30, and then we enter the period known as changeover, where we take down the scenery for the rehearsal and set up the scenery for the performance at night. The performance will start at 7:30. 10:30. We'll work it until about typically 10:30 or 11 at night, and then it's time to go home. So it's a very long day.
Can you share with us a bit about your path to becoming a stagehand? Like, how did you get into this field?
Well, my father actually sang in the chorus of the Met for 36 years, and about 13 years ago, I was living in West Virginia working for a bank, and I didn't like the job very much. I wasn't making a lot, and I considered the place where I was living to be as boring as dishwater. So my father called me up one day, and he said that if I would be interested, he could get me an interview with the master carpenter at the Met, and I could try my hand at stage work. My first impulse was to be really excited about the opportunity. I had never done that kind of work before, and I had serious questions about whether I could even make it. In the end, I decided that I'd come give it a try. I gave it everything I had, went through the training process that the Met had, and 13 years later, here I am.
And that just speaks to the power of giving things a try. Sometimes you might feel like, I'm not sure if I'm ready yet. You don't always have to have everything together perfectly to go and give something a try. You never know what can happen.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah. So you mentioned that when you first went for the job, like you didn't feel you had like a lot of experience. But had you done other things with like carpentry before?
I kind of joked with people in the past that the training at the Met is show up and get yelled at for 3 years until you stop making mistakes.
Okay.
So that was a big part of my development as a stagehand. There's really no other way to learn what goes into working each show than working the show.
Okay.
So the process really involves coming in, learning the terminology, learning your knots, learning the different hardware, learning the procedures to set things up and take them down. And I would say that typically by the second or third year, people start to feel comfortable. By the fifth year, they tend to make themselves assets. And beyond the seventh or eighth year, that's when you can really start to see who the people are that are going to go places.
What would people be most surprised to find out about being a stagehand?
This is what surprised me the most, is how down-to-earth and relatable everybody is. When I was living in West Virginia, I had a bit of anxiety about the fact that I didn't have a background in this work. I also had a bit of anxiety about the fact that I was not some, cosmopolitan New York person. And when I thought about the Met, I imagined all kinds of pretentious people who took themselves way too seriously. And
it's opera!
Absolutely, yeah, that's how I saw it. And I was so relieved to come there and find that I could just immediately start joking and laughing around with people. They accepted me right away, and we just got along great, and I've developed some real good friendships there.
What would you say is the best part of your job?
I have a tendency to get bored in places where I work, and the Met is a place that's always full of high energy. You're always dealing with unexpected things. So there's a level of excitement. Also, I really have the freedom to kind of be myself and not feel like I have to moderate the things that I say. People are pretty free about saying what's on their mind compared to that corporate environment where I used to work in.
So if someone watching right now is thinking, that's perfect, that's exactly what I want to do. They could maybe even be as young as in middle school. What advice or what tips would you give them regarding what they could do starting now in order to make that dream come true?
I would say this is not a job where it's hard to get. It's a job that's hard to last in and be good at. And over the years, I've seen a lot of people come and go in the place. And of those people who've been successful, I would say that there are three things they all have in common. The first is that they're not afraid to work. I mean, these are the people that when they come in on their first day, they might not know what they're doing, but they're just going to roll up their sleeves and jump in. And when they're done with what they're doing, they're going to look for the next thing. The attitude is kind of like, I'd rather get in trouble for trying too hard and being wrong than not trying at all. Second of all, they're all dependable people. When they're told to do something, you can just put it out of your mind and go do something else because you know that they're going to either get it done or they're going to come and tell you why they can't get it done. And the third thing is that they're all very conscientious people. When they put it in their mind to do something, they won't call it done until it's done right. If you're interested in getting into this line of work, I can say with a good degree of confidence that if you can really work on building those elements into your personality, if you can really take that attitude towards work, you could come into a place like the Met and be a boss in 15 years.
Wow. Wow, a boss in 15 years. It feels like a trend here, like it all comes back to character. And character is something you can work on every single day starting now. Because that's the difference between people who are successful and people who aren't. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for the time that you spent with us. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe. If you know somebody who should see this, share. Thanks for watching. See you later.